Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Big Sean called I Decided. You know, I struggled to comprehend why anybody's a fan of Big Sean. Now, it's not saying he doesn't have a few good songs, he does, or that he can't pull together a decent flow, because over the past couple of years he's proven he can actually do this. But if you're going to throw your weight and your critical attention as a fan behind any rapper, I simply do not understand why you would pick Big Sean over literally anyone else. Sure, the flow matters, but an excess of corny punchlines, his choice of beats that are often way heavier than he can convincingly back up with his voice, and he's frequently been outshone by his personality and content by his guest stars, I don't see the appeal. But it's not just that he's a frequently mediocre artist, he's an inessential artist in my view. More often than not, even when he's at his best, it's music that's passable and fills time, not better or worse than anything anyone's gonna care about or remember or sing at karaoke in 5 years. Hell, when I reviewed his big collaboration EP with Jhene Aiko 2088, I got the impression that she'd rather be singing opposite Drake than Big Sean. And so I couldn't help but feel a certain amount of poetic irony that the buzz going into this album was that Big Sean was looking to mimic the sound and style of Drake. Specifically off the project, if you're reading this, It's Too Late, back in 2015. Now, I didn't really care for that project. It wasn't really in Drake's wheelhouse as a performer. The style and flows never seemed to fit him all that comfortably. But hey, maybe Big Sean would be able to make something interesting out of it, right? Well, okay, here's what I'll say about I Decided. Big Sean looks to have finally reached the point as a rapper where his bars aren't an abundance of utter corniness. There is some quality here. He's certainly evolved as an MC, and when I say that, I mean from general mediocre and forgettable to competent. And also forgettable. Yeah, not gonna mince words with this. I found this record pretty damn underwhelming and boring and tedious. And following in the wake of J. Cole's last album, also overburdened with a concept that's nowhere near as interesting or insightful as it thinks it is. Again, it's not precisely a bad album, but it is completely inessential, and rapidly proving that Big Sean doesn't exactly have more interesting stories to tell, or indeed things to say. At all. So let's start off with Big Sean, shall we? Let's start with his flows and delivery. And yeah, he's actually gotten better. He's not quite as nasal as he used to be, mostly because he's sticking to a slightly lower register and not feeling the need to shout or contort his voice. And while he'll never be as expressive as the artist that he's ripping off, he's at least competent. And yes, I'm never not going to dock it a ton of points for flagrantly rhyming words with themselves, or his occasional verbal pileup that comes with trying to shove too many words into a single flow, but at the very least, he has improved here. But you know what? Enough dancing around the issue. For a significant chunk of this album, Big Sean's trying to sound like Drake circa 2015. And to his credit, he's not exactly bad at it, mostly helped by the fact that Big Sean is at least marginally more convincing using some of these flows than Drake was. Now, just like if you're reading this It's Too Late, it's still kind of exasperating to see Big Sean hop onto flows that are obviously cribbed from other rappers, especially the triplet flow. But you know what? To his credit, he at least brought on Migos on board with Sacrifices, and he's approaching them with enough confidence and skill to prove that he can at least mimic them well. And it also shows that he's not really being shown up here in terms of his guest stars. The Dream and Jeremih show up for hooks, and the only real big name rapper is Eminem, who decides to drop an overlong, protracted, violent rant that not only doesn't fit with Big Sean's content or subject matter, but also undercuts his own political point by dissing Trump by opening with a series of rape references and a list of objects that he wants to shove up Ann Coulter's ass, all in the name of justice? Way to completely miss the point, Em. But this does take us into the content. And to his credit, Big Sean is at least trying with the record concept, with surrounding narration from an older version of himself that is killed and then sent back to try and guide Big Sean to make better choices or go on the right path. The big issue is that Big Sean really does nothing with this framing device besides extended transitions between songs and a load of sentimental tracks in the back half, just like Drake did. And yet somehow tracks like the tribute to his mom Inspire Me, or the family church reminiscence that yes has some detail on Sunday Morning Jetpack, they wind up even feeling more weightless and corny than when Drake was whining about similar material in 2015. Most because old Big Sean's advice really doesn't add up to much significance, serving to push his younger counterpart to pick up his phone and call his mom every once in a while, and more often than not, just continue things that he was already doing. Hell, Voices in My Head Stick to the Plan quite literally shows Big Sean questioning his path and decisions before resolving to keep doing what he's doing. Where's the drama in that? Sacrifices start to get to what Big Sean has given up to get to his success, but for the most part it appears to be time. The rest undercut by Migos' bragging, showing that he's really covered a lot of his losses. And then we got that final song where he acknowledges that he needs to aim higher and aim for a bigger cause outside himself because he's made that choice for him and live in the moment and be there, which is a kind of a cute objectivist point of view that kind of flies in the face of the fact that he chose to bring in the Flint Chosen Choir, and no matter what people choose to decide to do in that community, the water's still poisoned and you don't even have the fucking spine to mention anything beyond yourself. Sorry, but it underlies one of the biggest problems with this record and Big Sean in general. He's a monumentally self-absorbed and self-focused rapper who can't make his own story and problems compelling or unique and doesn't have the balls to address bigger issues outside his own. So it leads to an album that's trying to be introspective and just rings as a hollow copy of what others have done so many times before and lacking in any sort of drama. At the very worst of it, we get Jump Out the Window, his version of Shawn Mendes' Treat You Better, and Oh Me, which feels like a blend of Kanye's Blame Game and Drake's Hotline Bling, with the concerned trolling directed at Ariana Grande, who may be a pop princess, but is eons more compelling than Big Sean is. I literally have no idea what Jhene Aiko sees in this guy, but I will give them that their brief moment on chemistry on Same Time Part 1, it was good, mostly because of Jhene Aiko. But fine, what does this mean for the instrumentation and the production? Well, what about it? You heard hip-hop production in the past 2 years. The selection of desaturated, skeletal trap beats will not surprise you. And if anything, it shows a step back from the more lush and interesting production that Big Sean had on Dark Sky Paradise. Man, that name is still stupid. It's another choice to de-emphasize unique personality that Big Sean might have had, also evident in near complete absence of an okay sense of humor he showed on that last album, in order to fit more in the Drake mold, and as such, there's just not much to say. I didn't mind the more restrained keys on Light, even though I'm a little surprised they never included a drum line there, which seems to be the opposite approach to Bounce Back or Moves, which actually have more of a trap beat but little actual melody. But you know what? That's a common approach here. Sparse, key-driven melodies, a disinterested tapping trap hi-hat that's more to the front, some blocky bass beats even more to the front, and hits of faded backing vocals to make the beats feel more cavernous. Sometimes you get a little bit more emphasis on the vocal samples and pitch shifting, which led to the completely grating sample on Jump Out the Window, and a second verse of Halfway Off the Balcony, or the completely phony gang vocals and hand claps on Oh Me that did nothing to build any sort of dramatic swell on some of the bells like it could have, and maybe a little bit more full bass and vocal harmonies like on Same Time Part 1, but that's pretty good. But it's not like any of it builds color or soul or a sound you couldn't hear done with more texture by Drake 2 years ago. Even with the brighter beat shift on Voices in My Head sticks to the plan. Now, to be more fair, it gets a little bit more melodic tone courtesy of the strings in the background by the time we get to Sunday Morning Jetpack, or the eerie arranged instrumentals opposite the slightly wonky strumming on Sacrifices, but with the squealing chipmunk vocals in the background of the Humid Inspire Me, with a more gospel touch Bigger Than Me. It's not always a good thing we get some of those melodies that they're completely obnoxious, even if the richer synths on the last song do a lot to help and make it somewhat tolerable. Now look, I make the case that none of the tones are as well blended or hit as hard as other trap bangers I've heard from other artists throughout the course of the past couple of years. But the more I thought about it, the less I'm surprised. If Big Sean wants to jog sweating behind the curve to pump out mainstream accessible sounds and flows that have been done before and done better, you know what, that's his right. And while I'll never understand why any of the public buys to it, that's their prerogative too. What I take issue with is that this is interesting or compelling, or that it doesn't firmly cement Big Sean as a near permanent B-lister in modern hip-hop at best. And with this album, he may have become blandly competent, but at the price of sounds and bombast and a sense of humor that tried harder than this, and that's not a price I think he should have paid. For me, 5 out of 10, only a recommendation for Big Sean fans, and I can't even guarantee they'll dig this. Otherwise, look, there might not be a lot of quality hip-hop on the radio right now or coming out in the first 2 months of this year, but you know what? There's a lot better stuff than this. I'd probably skip it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe. I'd be more than grateful. Sorry I got a little angry there, but yeah, there's some points that just are completely misconstrued. Bad ideas, Big Sean, bad ideas. But I got the poll up there for all you who want to tell me I'm wrong. If you want to still buy the album, the link's in the description below. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in my schedule, the link to my Patreon is right there, where 3 times a week for contributors, you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week, you guys, the higher contributors, get to add records or even potential movies to the schedule. Everyone who's contacting me, if you want to get in on the system and want to guarantee I cover your album and that it might get votes, there's your opportunity to do so. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.